Have you heard the news? US President Donald Trump has pitched yet another hissy fit about Canada. This one cracks me up in a way. So Thursday night, he turned on the TV apparently, and he saw an ad that was produced by the Ontario government in which former President Ronald Reagan was reading a speech. It was 1987. It was televised on TV, and it was very famous, where he talked about tariffs and the danger of tariffs and protectionism, argued that free trade benefits everybody. And of course, it was clearly aimed at Trump and his tariff war. And he blew a gasket. And he suspended trade talks with Canada immediately and stomped around, said all kinds of nasty things about us and what horrible people we are. Anyway, I mean, this is supposedly the leader of the free world. And he's got skin as thin as parchment paper. But this, that's not leadership. It's petty. It's insecure. Sorry, we're talking about Donald Trump because he's been all of those things his entire career. But here's the thing. It's not just him. If it was him, we would expect this. That's not a problem. It's Canadian conservatives. That's the point of this video is that Canadian conservatives, they're pundits, they're politicians, they're proxies on social media and in the legacy media, are all siding with Trump and criticizing Canada, criticizing the Liberal government under Prime Minister Mark Carney. This is not a partisan issue. This is a time when Canada should be standing firmly together. Team Canada, elbows up. That's got to be our strategy, right? So let's go through what actually happened, and I'll describe as best I can what the problem is. Okay, so they've ran this short ad, it's like a minute long, and it's really well done. I mean, it's nothing more than Reagan's voice and some photos of Canadian economic activity. There's a tractor in a field. I remember that. But Trump really took offense. And he responds by halting trade, and he announced it on Trade Social, which is Truth Social, which is his social media platform, and it was invective. I mean, he was just seething. There were exclamation points all over the place. It was like a teenager's love note or something. It was after he broke up with them. It's crazy, and it's not just diplomacy. Now, nobody ever accused Donald Trump of practicing diplomacy, but this really the authoritarian impulse here, that these are not just about country to country and two very important G7 countries. Canada is not unimportant in the world economy. And we shouldn't be treated this way. And we should be insulted. And I think most Canadians, the vast majority of Canadians, really don't like Trump. And this sort of behavior really is insulting to us. And we should be insulted. So before we go any further, let's watch the video. You can see it first. If you haven't seen it already, it's an interesting watch.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Okay, that video, you have to admit, was not that obnoxious. It shouldn't have been offensive to Donald Trump. I don't think many Americans probably didn't take offense to it. But the conservative reaction in Canada is a national disgrace. That's really, I can't say this strong enough. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Canadian Conservative Party of Canada, is on this bandwagon now. And so a lot of his MPs, it's like a targeted attack. It's like when the troll farm named the Conservative Caucus comes out to play, and they all sing from the same song sheet, and it's very well rehearsed, and it's coordinated and synchronized. Uh, so here they are criticizing the Canadian government. The Canadian government had nothing to do with the ad. That was Doug Ford and his conservative Ontario government. And Ford, by the way, is we're not quite sure yet if he's going to pull it and keep it pulled. There's some talk about him pulling it and then putting it back, putting it back on TV in a couple of days. We'll see how that goes. But Ford can be pretty feisty when he wants to be, and he's got a burr under his saddle when it comes to Trump. So it's kind of an interesting sidebar here, that you might want to watch for. But for the Conservatives, this isn't partisan loyalty. This really is moral cowardice dressed up as politics. Let's be very clear about this. We got to stop normalizing this kind of behavior. So it is moral cowardice. And I want to talk about a term that has been used ever since the Second World War for people just like this. And it's quisling. Q-U-I-S-L-I-N-G. And I'll tell you where it came from. So when Germany invaded Norway, they installed Vidkun Quisling, who was a former military officer, and he became the head of the Norwegian government, collaborating directly with Hitler and the Nazis. And he was a traitor. And he was so groveling that his last name became synonymous with treachery. So if somebody is siding with another power against your own country or their own country, they're a quisling. And I would argue that from Pierre Poilievre down to David Staples at the Edmonton Journal and Kevin O'Leary from whatever he does now, because nobody really knows, they're all quislings. They're all traitors. They're treacherous. That's what they've done in this. And this is not the first time, but this is an egregious example of the way they've been behaving over the past year since Trump became president. If you're going to defend the foreign leader attacking your country, you are not a patriot, you are a quisling. Okay. So I think we can all agree that Trump's suspension of trade talks was shameful. But for him, that's one of a long list of shameful things, and he has no shame. That's one of the defining features of this libertarian populism. They absolutely have no shame. It doesn't matter what they do or what they say. They have no shame about it. And so they just keep doing it, and they keep talking about it, and it becomes standard fare after a while. But anyone who cheers on Trump's spite, they should look in the mirror and ask themselves where their loyalties really lie. And if they're an elected official, either of within a parliament at the federal level or of a legislature at the provincial level, and they're doing that, they're cheering on Trump against the Canadian government and against, by extension, Canada, they should be ashamed. And we should hold them to account. We should not let them get away with this. So we need to stand Canada as firm and united. That's what was behind the Elbows Up campaign. Remember that? Hashtag Elbows Up. Came from Mike Myers on a Saturday Night Live skit. And it's become the rallying cry to resist Trump's tariff war, resist the rhetoric around annexing Canada as the 51st state, and pushing back. And folks, we have hurt the United States. Now they're running ads in, like Las Vegas and other places, asking Canadians to come back because it's, tourism is down 30, 40, 50%. Hotels are empty. You go down to our border crossing. There's nobody there because Canadians are not traveling, especially by car. They fly down more for business, but you know what I'm getting at. We're hurting them. And we should continue to hurt them. Don't buy American. Don't travel to the United States unless you absolutely have to. As in our household, we certainly don't. Loyalty to Canada must always come before loyalty to Donald Trump. Always.